He knocked me over. I landed on the dog bowl.
This one's wife. The bodyguard protects the chili pepper. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Things have not been going too well for the shriveled up chili pepper that is this one's wife. She has faced repeated criticism in relation to her style of management as an employer. She was accused of bullying people in the United Kingdom. She was accused of bullying people in Australia. She has recently been accused of bullying her staff in the United States. And in order to nullify the threat to control posed by those accusations, naturally, the narcissist needs to try and get people to come to her defense. You'll notice that ordinarily we are not told about what a wonderful employer she is, but rather certain individuals were compelled to come to her defense to suggest that she is a lovely employer, that she inquires about her staff, that she gives them eggs from the rescue chickens, and that she occasionally buys a bouquet of flowers. As you know, because she's a narcissist, none of those seemingly kind acts are intrinsically born of kindness because she has no emotional empathy. They are, like any action by a narcissist towards another person, self-serving and subconsciously in pursuit of the prime aims of control, fuel, character traits, and residual benefits. The fact is, because this one's wife operates a facade of being a kind and caring person, even though we all know that she's not, any suggestion to the contrary amounts to a threat to control, and where this is publicised in the media, that threat to control is substantial. It therefore behooves her, as a narcissist, to seek to nullify that threat to control. It is a common modus operandi, what is also known as the clapback, that this one's wife does so through the press, that she ensures that certain individuals are given an instruction to provide information to supine publications to demonstrate that actually she's not a tyrant, that she's not a dictator in high heels, that she's not a bellowing, awful person, but in actual fact, she's a lovely, lovely, lovely employer. And there's another instance of this taking place, because the fact is, the initial accusation that appeared in the Hollywood Reporter, which then was amplified by the Daily Beast and has been picked up across mainstream media and social media, continues like the aftershocks of an earthquake to be problematic for this one's wife, which means she has to keep trying to nullify those threats to control by trying to convince everybody that she's a really lovely person. And this time, it comes courtesy of an article by Jennifer Lenhart through In Touch Weekly, where we are told, to hear them tell it, she was the boss from hell, which of course is invariably the case with certain narcissists. Multiple staffers who have worked for this one's wife in the years since she began dating Prince Harry have described her as a demon, a narcissist, and a dictator in high heels, all criticisms which are threats to control. They've accused her of belittling common manipulation, her employees, and subjecting them to relentless bullying, undermining, and emotionally cruelty and manipulation, all common forms of manipulation that a narcissist would use, and that involved screaming, fuming, barking orders, reducing grown men to tears, and generally treating people like shit. Again, such behaviours are commensurate with the manifestation of heated ignited fury, which is something that happens when a narcissist's need for control is threatened. Thus, we could put it quite simply, this one's wife is behaving like the narcissist she is. The article continues by explaining, perhaps most telling, 18 people have quit since she and Harry moved to California in 2020. One former staffer even put his complaints in writing. The Duchess seems intent on always having someone in her sights, former press secretary Jason Knorf wrote in a 2018 email. We had report after report from people who have witnessed unacceptable behaviour. There is the evidence showing a sustained pattern of behaviour. Now, another staffer is going on the record. In an exclusive interview with In Touch, this one's wife's former bodyguard, Steve Davies, is telling all about what it was like for him to work for the Duchess. She gets a bad rap for being a not very good person to work with, that she was this evil person in the royal family. Steve, who had an intimate first-hand perspective on this one's wife, as she transitioned from relative obscurity as a B-list actress to the unforgiving worldwide spotlight, exclusively tells, in touch. I saw her, from working at the studio, to working with charities, to working with dog walkers and cleaners. There's one huge lesson I learned from her. It's give respect to get respect. Now, assuming that Mr. Davies is correct in what he's saying and these things happen, then what's actually occurring is that this one's wife, when she supposedly gives respect to receive respect, isn't doing it because it's inherently the way that she is. She's doing it guided by her narcissism in order to control the people that she's dealing with and receive fuel from them by way of reaction and quite possibly to manage her facade. He continues by explaining when they first met in 2018, this one's wife's life had essentially changed overnight. I felt sorry for her because she'd gone from being a celebrity to being a member of the biggest family in the world, says the Bodyguard, who was hired by NBC to watch over the Suits star in Toronto. It was stressful for her, all the publicity. Well, in actual fact, it wasn't stressful for her at all. The publicity was fuel for her, and she would have been loving every moment of it. The only aspect where it was stressful was if it threatened her control, where she might have been questioned or criticised. The UK press descended upon the city. This one's wife said in her Netflix documentary, Harry, This One's Wife, her modest rental home was surrounded by photographers, waiting for me to do anything, she added. Suddenly, it was like everything about my life got so much more insular. All the curtains were pulled, all the blinds were pulled. It was scary. It wasn't scary. What she's doing is trying to portray it as scary in that documentary by way of a pity play in order to elicit sympathy. The article explains that the constant surveillance took a toll. Steve says she was paranoid. Well, she's paranoid anyway because she's a narcissist. We had people following us around everywhere we went. We had problems with drones, vehicles chasing us. It was a nightmare. Everything she'd taken for granted about her own life disappeared. After a couple of weeks of working with her, I said, "What do you really want to do?" She said, "I'd love to be able to go and shop in a grocery store." The previous security team wouldn't let her do that. So I pushed the cart around the grocery store, and she was putting stuff in it. She really enjoyed that. Well, of course, because the Bodyguard is demonstrating that he's under control and his response is providing her with fuel. Her constraints only tightened when she moved to England. When Steve visited, he likened her life to being in a goldfish bowl. And in her bombshell 2021 interview on CBS, this one's wife made shocking allegations about basically being trapped there. "I couldn't call an Uber to the palace. You couldn't just go," she said, claiming she had to turn over her passport, revision of history, and keys to royal aids, revision of history. Even when she asked to have lunch with her friends, she contended, people within the firm would say, "No, you're oversaturated. It would be best for you to not go out." I go, "Well, I haven't left the house in months," revision of history. And of course, all of this being detailed in this article now is bringing up the past. But going out wasn't appealing either. From the moment she began dating Harry, photographers have followed her around, jumping traffic lights, trying to get alongside the vehicle, says Steve, a former British Special Forces soldier, who is now managing partner of Focus One Group in Toronto. Get the advert in there. These dangerous situations, similar to those that Harry and this one's wife reported during a May 2023 trip to New York City, were common, he says. Notice again how that ridiculous trip and the near-catastrophic car chase still get mentioned, bringing up the past. The situation deteriorated so much, this one's wife has admitted she suffered from suicidal ideations, revision of history, pity play. She loves Harry, she loves the children, but it can cause a lot of depression when you're scared to open a paper to see what people are saying about you, notes Steve. She's not scared to open a paper. She loves to see what's being reported about her. Steve said it didn't help that Buckingham Palace was controlling the PR, and this one's wife was always used to being able to control the PR herself with her team, which of course threatens her need for control. It was around this time that employees started complaining. The staff at Buckingham Palace said they couldn't stand working for her, Steve says. But back in Toronto, aides had seen a different side of this one's wife. Nobody had a bad word to say about her. Even with the pressure that she was under, she was warm and considerate all the time, he insists, adding that what might surprise people most is how friendly she is and what a big heart she has. She's great to her fans, and she would go out of her way to help people. That's what hurts me, that people otherwise believe. And that's why he's speaking out now. Though he no longer works for her, Steve considers this one's wife a friend. My wife and I got invited to the wedding. That's how close we became, he says, adding that they exchange emails on birthdays and holidays. I would work with her again, not a problem at all. She was a good person to work for, and she still is a good person. Now, there are two fundamental things to take away from this article. The first is that Steve may well be telling the truth about all of this, because you must not lose sight of this fact. He is a non-intimate secondary source within her fuel matrix. In effect, once was an employee, now is a friend. And certain people can have a decent relationship with the narcissist, particularly non-intimate secondary sources, because they are treated to the shelf dynamic. They are picked up and put down by the narcissist, and it may well be that they don't do anything to threaten the narcissist's control. So whenever they are dealt with by the narcissist, they're painted white and they're treated well, which is clearly what has happened to Steve. Therefore, he can say in all honesty, I thought she was warm and considerate. I thought she had a big heart, because that's all that he ever saw. What also mustn't be lost sight of is, of course, because she's a narcissist, when she treats him that way, it's just another form of manipulation. Narcissists can manipulate you in a benign fashion and a malign fashion. Thus, when she treats him well, it's not genuine. She's only treating him well because it allows her to control him and draw fuel from him. The other aspect of this, of course, is Steve has spoken out and been encouraged to do so in order to paint a pleasant picture of this one's wife to counter the bullying allegations. Again, part of the clapback behaviour. But once again, by understanding that she's a narcissist, you're able to understand the dynamic between her and Steve and why he would speak out favourably for her, why he's probably telling the truth of how he saw her as warm and considerate, but how that warmth and that consideration were entirely manufactured in an artifice generated by her narcissism, again, because it's all about the pursuit of the prime aims, and that overall, Steve is now utilised as part of the facade management. I'm HG Tudor. Thank you for listening.